Dad, don't unpack. We're already looking at flights. That was my daughter Diane, on the phone, half a world away, using the same voice she uses on her own kids when they've climbed up someplace too high and can't figure how to get down. I was standing out on my little balcony here in Huah Hin, coffee going cold in my hand, the morning sun already warm on my arms, in a way a Wisconsin morning never once was, and my oldest girl was telling me the three of them had made a plan. They were going to fly all the way over here and bring their father home where he belonged. I didn't argue. You don't argue with Diane. Ask her mother, God rest her. I just said, well, come on then. I'll pick you up at the airport. And I could hear her on the other end, not knowing what in the world to do with that. Let me back up, because I know how this sounds, and I don't want you thinking I'm the villain of my own story. I'm not. My name's Earl Vandenberg. I'm 78 years old, and I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Belgian on my dad's side, which up there mostly means booyah and stubbornness in about equal parts. I wired paper mills for a living. 40 years an electrician, union man, IBEW, local up and down the Fox River Valley, pulling cable through mills that smelled like wet cardboard and ran hotter than the devil's own kitchen. I know how a thing's supposed to be grounded. I spent my whole life making sure the current went where it belonged and nowhere it didn't. So that's the fella we're talking about here, not some old man having a breakdown, just an electrician. I lost my Ruth 6 years back. Cancer, the slow kind, the kind that takes a person one room at a time. And when she was gone, I did what a lot of men my age do, which is nothing. I stayed in the house, 41 years in that house. I kept her coffee cup on the shelf and I shoveled the driveway when it snowed, and I went to the Friday fish fry alone, and I got very, very good at being alone. You can get good at anything if you practice it long enough. Doesn't mean you're any good at living. The kids worried. They should have. I wasn't drinking or anything dramatic like that, just a brandy old-fashioned sweet on a Friday, same as always. But I'd gone quiet. I'd let things go. There was a whole winter I don't remember much of, if I'm honest, and I've never told them that. Then my brother Cliff died, younger than me by 2 years, and he goes first, which is the kind of joke the good Lord likes to play. Cliff never married, ran a bait shop out on the bay his whole life, and when the lawyer called it, turned out he'd left me a little something. Not a fortune, but more money at once than a mill electrician tends to see. And I sat there at Cliff's kitchen table with that letter, 68 degrees and gray outside in the middle of what should have been spring, and I thought, what am I saving myself for, exactly? That's the honest reason I ended up here. Not a scam, not some woman, not a midlife anything. You don't get a midlife crisis at 75, you get a now or never. Cliff handed me a window, and I'd been up too many nights on that computer, the way you do when you can't sleep, watching fellas not much different than me talk about a whole different kind of life on the other side of the world. Warm, slow, cheap enough that a man on a pension could actually breathe. I ran the numbers on a legal pad. I'm a numbers man, an electrician who can't add, doesn't stay an electrician, or alive, very long. And the numbers didn't make sense. They made too much sense. I checked them twice, which is a thing my whole trade beats into you. Measure it twice, and then measure it a third time when it's your own neck on the line. So I went. 75 years old, one suitcase, and a carry-on, and I didn't tell the kids until it was more or less done, because I knew the phone call I'd get, and I got it, just a couple years later than they'd have liked. What I want you to understand, before I tell you the rest, is that my kids aren't cold, and they aren't after my money. Diane's a nurse. Greg builds houses. Lisa teaches 3rd grade and hasn't got a mean bone in her. They love me. That's the whole trouble with this story. They love me, and they were scared. And love plus scared can put 3 grown adults on a 14-hour flight with a plan to save their old dad from himself. They came here to bring me home. And I'm going to tell you what they found when they got here. But first I've got to tell you how I got here myself, the numbers, the mistakes, the nights I damn near called Diane and said, you were right, come get me, because it wasn't all sunsets. Not at first. Pour yourself something. This takes a minute. Here's the thing, nobody tells you about grief. It makes you dumb, and then it makes you brave. And those two can look an awful lot alike from the outside. The dumb part was those late nights on the computer. I'd sit at Ruth's kitchen table. I still called it hers, with the whole house ticking and cold around me, and I'd fall down these holes watching videos. Old guys my age, sitting on balconies in shirt sleeves talking about doctor visits that cost less than my copay and rent that cost less than my property tax. I figured it was a con. Everything that good is a con. I'd been a union man long enough to know when somebody's selling you something. But I'm an electrician, and an electrician doesn't trust a pretty picture. He trusts a meter. So I got out a legal pad, the yellow kind, and I started writing down real numbers. What was I actually living on? Social Security, a little under $2,000 a month. My union pension, about $1,600 more. Call it $3,500 a month, give or take, before the government takes its bite. Then I wrote down what Wisconsin took back. Property tax on the house. Heat, you have no idea what it costs to keep a drafty old house warm when it's 20 below and the wind's coming off the bay. Car, insurance, the works. And I'd sit there and watch $3,500 disappear into a life I didn't even like anymore, in a house too big for one, in a cold that got into my hands worse every year. 40 years of wiring, and my hands had started to ache in the morning. That's the part that scared me more than money, a man's hands. So I did the arithmetic on the other side of the page. If a fella could live decent over there for around half of what I was spending, and I didn't believe it yet, mind you, I just wrote it down then that $3,500 a month stopped being something I survived on and started being something I could actually live on. With room left over. That number at the bottom of the page, the leftover, I circled it, and I sat and looked at that circle for a long time. But a number on a legal pad is not a life. I'd wired enough jobs off somebody's bad blueprint to know the drawing lies. You go look at the actual building. So I told myself, don't move anywhere. Just go look. 2 weeks. If it's baloney, you're out a plane ticket and you come home and you never think about it again. Why Thailand? And why Huah Hin in particular? I'll be straight with you. I picked Huah Hin because it looked like the least crazy option for a careful man. The big flashy places, the party towns, that's not me. I'm not going halfway around the world at 75 to sit in a bar. Huah Hin's a quiet seaside town about 3 hours south of Bangkok, and the Thai royal family has kept a summer palace there for 100 years, which tells you something. It's the calm, respectable, well-swept kind of place. Good hospitals within reach. Golf, which I hadn't played in years but always meant to, and an old, settled crowd of foreigners already there. So I wouldn't be the only gray-haired Farang wondering which way was up. Farang, by the way, that's just their word for a Westerner. You get called it kindly, mostly. So I flew over. 75 years old, first time past Chicago in my life except for the Army. And I stepped out of that airport in Bangkok into air like a warm, wet washcloth pressed right over your face. February. Should have been snowing at home. And I stood there on the curb sweating through my good shirt and I thought, Earl, you have lost your mind. The van ride down to Huah Hin took a few hours. I watched the country go by the flooded green rice fields, the little roadside stands, the temples with their gold roofs catching the sun, monks in orange walking single file along the shoulder. Nothing about it looked like Green Bay. Nothing about it looked like anywhere I'd been. And somewhere on that highway, watching a water buffalo stand in a paddy like it had all the time in the world, I felt something in my chest come loose that had been wound up tight for 6 years. I didn't say anything to anybody. Who would I tell? But I wrote it that night in the hotel, on the same legal pad, under the circled number. I wrote, might be something here. That's it. I'm not a poet. That was as far as I'd go. I spent those 2 weeks doing what I do on any job, walking the site. I walked the beach at 6 in the morning before it got wicked hot, the fishermen bringing in the night's catch, the long-tail boats pulled up on the sand. I walked the old train station, this beautiful red and cream wooden thing the Kings built, prettier than any building in Green Bay, and I sat on the platform like a boy watching for trains. I found the Gulf out toward the hills. Black Mountain, they call it. Greens I couldn't have afforded to look at back home, and I stood at the fence and thought, well, maybe. I ate at the night market every single night, pointing at things I couldn't name and being wrong and being delighted anyway. And one evening a fella heard my accent. You can't hide a Wisconsin accent. It's got cheese curds in it, and he waved me over. Big retired Australian, Doug, been there a dozen years. I bought him a Leo, that's one of the local beers, and I asked him the only question that mattered. Do you regret it? He looked at me a good long minute. Then he said, mate, the only thing I regret is the years I waited. I've thought about that 100 times since. The years I waited. 2 weeks, I told myself. I stayed the full 2, and I walked that town flat. And by the end of it, I wasn't asking whether the numbers were real. I was asking whether I had the guts. I came back the next fall for good. Told the kids over Sunday supper, all 3 on speakerphone, and it went about how you'd expect. Diane went quiet, which is worse than yelling. Greg asked who was going to find me if I fell. Lisa cried a little. I understood every bit of it. I just did it anyway. Sold the truck, rented out the house rather than sell it. A man likes a door back home, packed the one suitcase, and flew. And I'll tell you, the first few weeks, I nearly proved every one of my kids right. The heat, for one. It's one thing to visit the heat in February. It's another to live in it. Huah Hin in April, before the rains, is like standing in front of an open oven all day long. I'd walk to the corner and my shirt would be soaked through. My Wisconsin blood didn't know what hit it. I ran the air conditioning so hard the first month that I about gave myself pneumonia going in and out of it, and I had to learn slow down, Earl, walk in the morning, rest in the afternoon like the locals do. They're not lazy, they're smart. But the numbers, Lord, the numbers held. That's the part I need you to hear, because that's the part that's real, that a man could check. I found a one-bedroom condo a few streets back from the beach, clean, tile floors, a little balcony, a pool downstairs I use more than I'd admit. 16,000 baht a month. That's about $485 for the whole apartment. I stood in that empty apartment with the agent and I made her tell me the number 3 times because I was sure I'd gotten the exchange rate wrong. About 33 baht to the dollar. I kept a little card in my wallet the first year to do the math. $485 a month for a place nicer than anything I'd rented as a young man. Food about knocked me over too. There's a night market here, the one off the main road, and the first time I walked through it I about wept over a plate of chicken and rice. Cow man guy, they call it poached chicken, rice cooked in the fat, a little ginger sauce that'll wake you right up. 40 baht, not much more than $1, a whole supper. There's a woman with a cart who grills pork on little sticks mu ping, and I'd buy 4 of them for my walk home like a kid with candy. Som tam, the green papaya salad, which the first time about took the roof of my mouth off, the little Thai grandmother laughing at the farang, gasping for water. I go back to her stand 3 times a week now. She knows my face. The first few weeks I made every rookie mistake there is. I paid too much for an electric fan because I didn't know you asked the price first. I got on the wrong Songthieu and rode clear to the end of the line and back, which cost me 40 baht in an hour and, honestly, was the best tour of the town I got. Those little red trucks don't have proper stops. You flag one down, climb up on the bench in the back, and when you want off you press a buzzer on the ceiling and hand a coin up front. Took me a week to work up the nerve. Now I ride them like I was born to it. And I learned the market by getting it wrong. First time I went for mangoes, the woman held up her fingers and I just handed her a 100 baht note, and she about chased me down the road to give me the change because I'd gone and overpaid by half and she wasn't having it. That surprised me more than anything. Most folks here are more honest than I'd braced for. Oh, there's the odd farang price, the little foreigner tax. I won't pretend there isn't. But mostly the lady runs you down to put the money back in your hand, gets you right in the chest, having your suspicions corrected by a woman selling mangoes. I sat down after that first month with the legal pad. I'd brought it. Of course I brought it, and I added up what I'd actually spent. Rent, 16,000 baht. Electric and water, with the air conditioning running, about 3,000. Food, cooking a little and eating out most nights, around 14,000. Getting around, I don't drive here. I take the Songthius, these little pickup trucks with benches in the back that run up and down the main roads for 20 baht, or a motorbike taxi when I'm lazy, call it 2,500 a month. Phone and internet, 1,000, and I'll get to the health part because that's its own conversation. All of it, all in, was landing around 53,000 baht a month. That's a shade over $1,600 to live nicely, warm, fed, a roof, a pool, chicken and rice, any night I wanted it. I sat there and did the subtraction I'd done on that yellow pad back in the cold, except now it wasn't a guess. $3,500 coming in, about $1,600 going out, which left the better part of $1,900 a month that I was, for the first time in my life, not spending. An electrician trusts the meter, not the sales pitch. Well, I'd been the meter for a month, and the meter didn't lie. I'd spent 75 years being careful with money because I had to be. And here I was, on the far side of the world, careful for the first time because I finally could afford not to have to be. I don't know how to explain what that does to a man's shoulders. They just come down from around his ears. Now I know what the practical ones among you are thinking because I'm one of you. That's fine, Earl, but you can't just show up and stay. And you can't. There's paperwork, and it's real, and any fella who tells you it's simple is selling you the pretty picture again. The visa's the big one. There's a retirement visa, they call it the OA, that you can get from back home in the States, but it comes with a catch. It makes you carry Thai-approved health insurance, and the required amount can be a moving target depending on who you ask. So you verify it, you don't guess. For a man my age, the fellas who'd been here a while pointed me a different direction. You come in on a regular entry and then convert it inside the country to what they call a non-O. Same money rules, but it sidesteps that insurance mandate. For most of us over 60, that's the sensible road, and it's the one I took. The money rules are just numbers, and numbers I can do. You either park 800,000 baht, about $24,000 in a Thai bank, and leave it sit, or you show income of 65,000 baht a month, which is around $1,970. My 3,500 a month clears that income line without breaking a sweat, so that's how I qualified, and I kept a cushion in the bank besides, because Cliff didn't leave me that money to run myself down to zero being cavalier. Then there's the keeping up with it. Every 90 days, you report your address to the immigration office, a 90-day report, they call it. Once a year, you renew. There's a thing called a TM30 where your landlord registers that you live there. It's a morning of sitting on a plastic chair with a paper number in your hand, and I won't pretend it's fun, but I stood in worse lines at the DMV in Green Bay in January, so I keep my mouth shut and bring a book. That first 90-day report, I showed up before the office opened, the way you show up early to a job, and there was already a line of us out front, Brits and Germans and a couple of Aussies, all gray, all clutching the same fat folder of photocopies. You learn quick to bring copies of everything, and then copies of the copies. There's an old-timer who walks the line handing out advice for free. Copy of the visa page, copy of the entry stamp, copy of the TM30, and sign in blue ink, not black. Good men everywhere, if you look for them. A young officer in a crisp uniform took my papers, stamped a little slip, tucked it in my passport, and that was the whole thing, 20 minutes. And I walked out feeling like I'd passed an inspection. I bring a paper back now, nobody's rushing anybody. The one that mattered most to my kids and to me was the doctor. Because here's a fact, people get wrong and I want to get it right. Medicare does not cover you over here. Not a nickel. I'm 78. I'm on Medicare, same as any American my age, but the day I stepped off that plane, Medicare stayed home. So a lot of us keep paying the Part B. It runs a little over $200 a month just to keep the door open for trips back to the States. I do. That's my catastrophe plan. My flight home if something big goes wrong. For the everyday though, I about fell over. First checkup here, I walked into Bangkok Hospital Huah Hin clean as a whistle. Doctor spoke fine English. No waiting till next month for an appointment, and the whole visit, doctor and a couple tests, ran me around 1,300 baht. $40. I paid it in cash out of my pocket and walked out and stood in the parking lot doing the math again like a fool. I'll be honest about the hard part of it, because that's the only way I know how to talk. Insurance for a man my age, real coverage for the big stuff, gets expensive and it gets hard to even buy. The older you are, the pricier it climbs, and things you've already got wrong with you, they'll often just refuse to cover. So I don't carry a big fancy policy. I carry a modest local plan. I keep a good cushion of Cliff's money set aside for a real emergency, and I keep that Part B for the door home. It's a grown man's gamble, and I made it with my eyes open. Anybody who tells you the healthcare answer over here is simple is lying to you. It's cheap and it's good for the everyday. For the big stuff you plan, and you keep away home. That's the truth of it. I put all of it on the legal pad, naturally. The visa fees, a couple thousand baht here and there, the flights, the first and last month's rent, the little bit of furniture I bought. It came to a few $1,000s all told to get set up, and Cliff's money covered it and never noticed. And when it was all done, when I'd sat on the plastic chairs and paid the fees and gotten the stamp in the book, I sat on my little balcony one evening with a Chiang beer sweating in my hand, watching the light go orange over the rooftops, and I understood that I lived here now, not visiting, lived. 75 years old, and I'd wired myself a whole new circuit, and the power was on, and nothing was tripping. I called Diane that night. I didn't tell her all of it. She wasn't ready to hear that her father was happy. That took longer. I'd be lying to you, and I promised I wouldn't, if I let you think it was easy from there. The numbers worked. The man took a while longer. The loneliness came for me around the third month. The newness wears off. You've seen the temples. You've eaten the chicken and rice 100 times. The sunset's still there, but you stop photographing it, and what's left is a 75-year-old man in a foreign country where he can't read a single sign and doesn't know a soul who knew his wife's name. That's a particular kind of alone. Back in Green Bay, at least the cashier at the Piggly Wiggly knew me. Here I was nobody. A pleasant nobody, but a nobody. And the language. I want to be square with you about this, because I've seen those videos that say everybody over here speaks English, and it is not true. In the tourist spots, in the hospital, sure, plenty. But the woman with the Jomtien cart, the man who fixes my motorbike, my own neighbors know. Thai is a tonal language, which means the same word said in a slightly different pitch means a whole different thing. And an old electrician from Wisconsin with a tin ear is not built for it. I said something to a fruit lady once that I meant as how much, and by her face I'd said something else entirely, and I'll never know what. There was one night, I'll tell it because it's the true one. It was rainy season, the rain coming down in sheets the way it does, warm rain, loud on the metal roofs, and I was sitting alone eating instant noodles, the shrimp kind, because I didn't feel like going out in it, and it was a Sunday, and back home it would have been a Packers game, and Ruth in her chair, and the whole familiar warm racket of a life. And I got a hollow feeling so big I couldn't sit in it. I had my phone in my hand. I had Diane's number up. I was going to call her and say, "Honey, you were right, I made a fool of myself. Come get me, I'll be on the next plane." I didn't call. And I'm not going to pretend it was courage. It was the time difference. It was 3 in the morning in Wisconsin, and I couldn't wake her at 3 to fall apart, so I sat with it. And the rain let up around dawn, and I heard, coming down the Swai, that's what they call the little side streets, the click of a monk's alms bowl. First light. The monks walk in the morning collecting food, and folks kneel and give rice, and it's the oldest quiet thing you ever saw. I stood in my doorway and watched it. I didn't understand a bit of it. But it was going on with or without me, this whole gentle world, and something about that steadied me. I made coffee, I stayed. The turn didn't come all at once. It came in little wires, one at a time, the way you actually build anything that holds. The Somtam lady started setting aside the papaya less spicy for me without my asking, and laughing when I still gasped. A retired fella named Barry, a Brit who'd been here 20 years, waved me over to his table at the little bar by the market one evening, and next thing I know, I've got Tuesday coffee with 3 old expats who argue about football that isn't football. My neighbor downstairs, a Thai man about my age named Wichai, a retired school teacher with English better than mine, took to sitting out front in the evenings, and we'd sit there not talking much, 2 old men in the warm dark, and it was enough. He taught me my first real words that stuck: Sawasdi crap for hello, kop kun krop for thank you, said with the little bow, the Y, hands together. The first time I got the tone right on Kap Kun and the old woman's face lit up, I felt like I'd landed a plane. There was a stretch where Wichai and I got in the habit of the morning market together. He'd knock at 7 with 2 coffees and we'd walk down for the day's food, and he'd hand me a word or two and correct my tones, gentle, never laughing at me exactly, just alongside me. He showed me how you make merit, how you buy a little bag of food for the monks and hand it over with the Y, the way the old women do every morning like it's breathing. I'm not a religious man. Ruth was the churchgoer of the 2 of us. But there's something in standing quiet at dawn and giving away a bag of rice that a Lutheran boy from Green Bay understood right down to the ground, even if he hadn't got the words for it. That's the thing about belonging here. Nobody adopts you. There's a word. Kreng Jai, it means a kind of considerate holding back, not wanting to impose or make a fuss. The warmth is real, but it's quiet, and it comes slow, by you showing up to the same stall in the same corner and the same coffee, day after day, until one day you're not the Farang, you're Earl, the one who likes the pork sticks, and somebody saves you a seat. You earn it the way you earn anything, with your hours. By the time a year had gone by, I had a life. A small one, a warm one, mine, and I'd stopped counting the days until anything. I just started living them, which is right about when my phone rang, and it was Diane, and she wasn't calling to check in. "Dad, don't unpack, we're already looking at flights. I told you we'd get back here." About a year and a half in, that was the call. The 3 of them had gotten together. Diane, Greg, and Lisa sat around Diane's kitchen table without me, the way you plan an intervention, and decided their father had been alone and grieving and had let a pile of Uncle Cliff's money and a slick internet dream talk him into ending his days on the far side of the earth where nobody could look after him. They loved me. I want to keep saying that because it's the whole point. It wasn't greed and it wasn't spite. It was 3 grown kids scared to death that their old man was going to die alone among strangers, and they were coming to fix it. So I picked them up, watched them come through the arrivals gate at the Bangkok airport, gray and rumpled from 14 hours of flying. All three of them wearing the same look, the look you'd wear coming to collect a confused relative. Diane hugged me, and I felt her checking me over the way a nurse does. Are you thin? Are you steady? Are you all there? Greg shook my hand and scanned me like a house he was thinking of condemning. Lisa just held on a second too long. And then they spent a week here. And I didn't argue with a single thing they'd come to say. I just let the days do the talking. They saw me get up before the heat and walk out to Khao Takiab, the headland at the south end, with the temple on it and the monkeys, which delighted my grandkids over video, later walking easy. No cane, no ache in the hands I used to have back in the cold. They saw the Som Tam lady wave and call Earl and slide me a plate, less spicy, and they saw her scold Greg's spice tolerance in Thai, while everybody laughed. They came to Tuesday coffee and watched Barry and the boys rib me and rib them, and I saw Greg realize his old man had friends who'd notice inside a day if he didn't turn up. I took Greg out to Black Mountain to play 9 holes, and my son, who swung a hammer his whole life, stood on the first tee looking at greens like a painting and said, "How much did you say this costs?" And I told him what a round runs here, and he set his club right back down and laughed. The first real laugh I'd heard out of him since the airport. We played bad golf in the heat and drank cold water out of the cart, and somewhere around the 6th hole he quit playing and just said, "You're really all right here, aren't you, Dad?" It wasn't a question anymore by then. And the last night I had the 3 of them over to Witch Eye's for supper. His wife cooked the whole spread, and Witch Eye told my kids stories about their old man butchering the Thai language, doing every one of my worst mistakes back at me across the table, and the whole crowd of them roared my kids and my Thai neighbors, 2 families that had no earthly business understanding each other, laughing in 2 languages over 1 table. Lisa caught my eye across it. I just nodded at her. "See," I was trying to say, "see, Diane's the nurse." So Diane went for the throat of it. She made me take her to the hospital, not because anything was wrong, because she wanted to see it. And I walked my daughter into Bangkok Hospital Huah Hin, clean and cool and quiet, and she watched me get a checkup for around 1,300 baht, $40, cash, no wait, the doctor sitting and actually talking to me. I watched her face the whole time. She spent 30 years in American hospitals. She didn't say anything, but something went out of her shoulders that had been in there since the airport. The money was Greg's worry, so one night I put the legal pad on the table, same yellow pad. I showed him the whole circuit, $3,500 a month coming in, about $1,600 going out, all in, warm and fed and housed. The better part of $1,900 a month I don't spend going back into the cushion every single month instead of the mill of a Wisconsin winter eating it. I showed him the rent, $485, and I watched my son, who builds houses, do the math and not be able to make it come out any other way than the way I'd told him. He got quiet. Then he said, "Dad, I couldn't do this in Green Bay. I couldn't do this for you in Green Bay for double the money." And I said, "I know it, bud. That's the whole thing. That's what I've been trying to tell you." But it wasn't the numbers that turned them. I want to be honest, because the numbers are just the meter. It was Lisa, the 3rd night, on my little balcony after the other 2'd gone to bed. She'd had a couple of the Chiang beers, and she was looking at me in the string light dark, and she said, "Dad, you're lighter. I haven't seen you like this since before, Mom." And she started to cry, and it wasn't the scared crying from the airport. It was the other kind. Because that's what they came 10,000 miles and found. Not a confused old man being taken advantage of. Not a sad story. They found their father sleeping through the night, walking without pain, eating like a king for pocket change, sitting with friends in the warm dark, saving money instead of burning it, and lighter than they'd seen him in the 6 years since we put their mother in the ground. Nobody said out loud that the plan was off. You don't have to, in our family. But the flights home, Greg quietly changed nobody's ticket. And at the airport when they left, Diane didn't hug me like she was leaving me somewhere. She hugged me like she was leaving me home. They've been back twice since. Diane brought the grandkids the last cool season, and I took the 2 little ones up Khao Takiab to see the monkeys. And my grandson looked at me on that headland with the sea going on forever and said, "Grandpa, you live in a movie." I do a little. It doesn't feel like a movie from the inside. From the inside, it just feels like a Tuesday. But a good one. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's paradise, because I told you at the start I wouldn't lie to you, and I'm not starting now, not at the end. I miss the grandkids, something fierce. Video calls are a gift and they are not the real thing. And there are birthdays and a school play or two I've watched on a little screen with a lump in my throat. And that's the price. And it's a real price. And I pay it. I'm still a foreigner here, and I always will be. I'll never fully crack the language. I'll always pay a Farang price now and then, and know it. And there's a way you belong to a place you were born in that you can't ever get somewhere else, no matter how many pork sticks the cart lady saves you. And the healthcare is a genuine bet at my age, cheap and wonderful for the everyday. But for the big frightening stuff, it's a plan and a cushion and a door home, not a guarantee. And a man my age had better be a grown-up about that. But here's the other side of that ledger, and it's the side I circle now. I'm 78. I moved here at 75, and it's been about 3 years, and they've been the best 3 since Ruth. I wake up warm. My hands don't ache. I have friends who'd miss me by lunchtime. I have more money at the end of the month than the beginning, which I never once did in a working life in America. My kids don't lie awake, scared for me anymore. They come and stay and drink. Chiang on my balcony and get sunburned and go home telling everyone their dad's got it figured out. And the fear that put them on that plane, the fear that their father was throwing his last years away among strangers, I got to watch that fear turn into something else, right in front of me, in a hospital hallway and over a legal pad, and on a balcony with string lights. That's a gift most men don't get. To have the people you love come to save you, and to be able to show them you were already saved. We've got a rhythm now, the 4 of us, that we never had when I lived 20 minutes from all of them. Sunday morning's my time, Saturday night's theirs. The whole crew piles onto the video, call Diane with her coffee, Greg fresh off a job site, Lisa with a 3rd grader's artwork held up to the camera, the grandkids fighting over who gets to talk. I see them more now, in a way, than I did rattling around that big house where we'd all gotten too busy to drive across town. Distance is a funny thing. Sometimes it's the very thing that finally makes people show up. Greg's talking about coming back for a month next year, maybe longer. He says it's to keep an eye on me. We both know it isn't. He's running the math on his own legal pad now. I can hear it in his voice. The same arithmetic that circled the same number for me. I don't push him. A man's got to climb through his own window. I keep Ruth's coffee cup here, by the way. I brought it in the carry-on wrapped in a shirt. It sits on the shelf over the little kitchen, and every morning I make my coffee and I look at it and I tell her what the plan is for the day. She'd have loved it here, my Ruth. She'd have had the whole SWA organized inside a week and known every vendor's grandchildren by name. That's the one I can't fix, and I've made my peace with the not fixing. Cliff gave me the window, but I'm the one who climbed through it. Don't let anybody tell you 75 is too old to change your whole life. It might be exactly the right age, when you finally know what you actually want, and finally quit caring what it looks like. Before I let you go, one last thing. If any of this landed for you, if you're sitting there in the cold with a pension that doesn't stretch and a house too big and quiet, doing the same math I was doing on that yellow pad, there's a free tool down in the description that's worth your time. The Honest Thailand Retirement Starter Kit, it's called. I didn't make it, and I'm not selling you a thing. It's a plain self-check that's every bit as willing to talk you out of this as into it, and a worksheet where you run your own real numbers, city by city, the way I ran mine. Costs you nothing. And if it tells you to stay right where you are, well, that's an honest answer too, and worth knowing. That's all I've got. Go easy on yourselves out there, and measure twice.